Thank you, sir. Thanks, Todd. We are now recording?
I thought I started. Let me try again. Oh no, we are. Sorry, it's going.
Okay, terrific. Well, welcome everybody to the it is September 18th, 2023 PRAC meeting. We have not met for some time, so it's good to see a lot of your faces. Before we begin, though, I'd like to introduce a new member to the council, Representative Anderson, who has replaced the Representative Karin Power as an ex officio member of the Public Records Advisory Council. What I'd like to do quickly is give Representative Anderson a quick opportunity to introduce himself. I'd also like to take a moment
that's fantastic.
to briefly ensure that Representative Anderson gets a quick opportunity. Hey, Tony? Tony?
Can I put a placemaker on that? Okay.
Can we get him, Todd? Can you silence Tony? Thank you. Take a quick moment for everybody to introduce themselves to Representative Anderson, and then we'll begin our agenda. So, Representative Anderson, welcome to this illustrious group, and we're very happy to have you with us. Why don't you just take a quick moment to introduce yourself, and members of the council will briefly introduce themselves, and then we can begin to get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I hope I have not dimmed the luster of this committee by my joining it. I've been a lawyer since 1976. I've been a trial lawyer that whole time. I also have been a Salem City Councilor for 8 years, and we dealt with issues of this type quite often on the council. I'm currently the Democratic representative for South Salem, basically from the capital down to the city limits. And Todd and I have met and discussed things, so I'm generally familiar with what you folks do, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thanks.
Well, terrific. Well, thank you for joining us today, Representative. Why don't we just do a quick round of introductions? I'm going to go first to Steve. We're not hearing you, Steve. Sorry. While Steve gets that worked out, we'll go to Scott.
Morning, everybody. My name is Scott Stauffer, and I'm a representative on the council representing cities, and I am the city recorder for the city of Milwaukee.
Thank you, Scott. Tony.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Hernandez. I am representing the general public, and I've been sitting on the board since on the council since day one, and glad to see everyone.
Thanks, Tony. Steve, you back up?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay. Pleased to meet you, Representative Anderson. I'm Steve Suo. I've been on the PRAC for about 5 years now. I'm a professional journalist, formerly worked for the Oregonian. I currently work for an organization called ProPublica out of New York.
Thank you, Steve. Stephanie?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Mark. Hi, Rep. Anderson. My name is Stephanie Clark. I am the state archivist, and today I'm sitting in the Secretary of State's seat for our usual member, PK Runkles Pearson, who's our general counsel. So I'm a pinch hitter today. And but I was on the council before, and it's good to see all these familiar faces. So thanks for letting me join.
Thank you, Stephanie. Andrea?
Good morning. I'm Andrea Chiapella. I'm the Communications Director at the Department of Administrative Services, and I'm working on my second cup of coffee now because I'm a little tired this morning. So thanks for bearing with me. Welcome.
Great, thank you. Let's see, who am I missing here? Well, obviously we have Todd. Todd, you, Representative Anderson, mentioned that you met with him. I appreciate you doing that. Am I missing any other council members at this point? If so, please speak up. I also want to make sure that we introduce Yufeng, okay?
Sure. Well, Emily Harris joined us, so we could have her.
Oh, great.
Hi,
Great.
Yes, I'm here. Camera off, but I'm here.
Just introduce yourself to Representative Anderson, if you could, Emily.
Oh, sure, of course. I'm sorry. I just joined and missed the introductions. My name's Emily Harris. I'm a journalist, and I fill one of those slots on the PRAC. I currently report for Axios Portland, covering issues of interest to Portland and also around the state.
And Yufeng, just quickly.
Hi, I'm Yufeng. I'm the Deputy Public Records Advocate working with Todd.
Great.
And Emily Gothard joined us. Emily Gothard is here now too.
Oh, great. Emily, please.
Hello, I'm Emily Gothard, and sorry, I'm having some issues with my camera right now. I'm trying to sort out. I am a paralegal. I work for SEIU Local 503 and fill the position for representing public employees.
Terrific. Thank you. I do see a couple hands up here, Todd, and I think one of them is Emily.
I think they were letting us know that they're here now.
Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
that's Legacy. Okay, very good. So thank you for every, oh, by the way, I'm Mark Landauer. I forgot myself. I represent a number of public entities, primarily the Special Districts Association. Representative Anderson, thank you for joining us today. So we'll begin with our agenda, and I noted that we have one set of meeting minutes to approve, Todd. I wasn't there. I did read them, but I was not there, so I feel a little uneasy making a motion, but I would welcome a motion unless there are any corrections to the meeting minutes.
There is. Well, first off, so we only have at the moment November 18th, 2022 and January 5th, 2023. Tony did get me the outstanding meeting minutes, but I haven't had an opportunity to post them. So I will do that in advance of our next meeting for everyone's review. And for the January 5th meeting, our guest today, Cameron Miles, pointed out that we used his incorrect title in those minutes. So I think we could approve those minutes as long as there's no other issues with that Scrivener's note for Tony to just go back and change his title so we could then post it appropriately.
Oh yes, Representative Anderson.
I'm sorry, but I forgot to mention that I have another obligation and I'm going to have to leave about 12 o'clock, but I'm sure Todd can fill me in on anything else. And I also want to tell you that my wife has been a journalist for over 30 years, starting with the LA Times, and has worked for magazines, major American magazines, pretty much her whole career. And so that's another reason why I'm glad to be on this committee.
Thank you again. At this point, I'll entertain a motion with the understanding that there will be a Scrivener's correction on the title for Miles.
I can make that motion. I move to adopt the meeting minutes as posted from November 18th, 2022 and January 5th, 2023 with the one addendum that will be correcting Cameron's title from January 5th for final posting.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting minutes are officially adopted. Thank you, everybody. So our next item for the agenda is an update on the status and future of Senate Bill 417. Well, this is a very interesting topic, and apparently my name has been stuck to this agenda item, so I will give you all an update. So as you will recall, the PRAC did introduce a bill addressing fees during the 2023 session. That bill did receive a hearing before the Senate Rules Committee. And as a result of that hearing, the chair of the committee, Senator Lieber, directed a work group to be formed during the session. And during the session, we did meet. And I'm trying to remember who all was party to that. I know Steve, you were in those meetings, as well as Emily. I'm trying to remember whether Scott, I don't think you were in those meetings. We did have a couple city attorneys, a county attorney, a member of the Oregon Trial Lawyers Association, school boards, cities, counties, districts. It was an interesting group, and we conducted, I think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had 6 meetings. And we took at least an hour and a half in each of those meetings. We did produce a product, and I think, Todd, we have shared that with the group. That was, frankly, it was a memorialization of what had been agreed to that point. I am going to be meeting with, I should also mention Tom Holt with SPJ was co-chair. I served as a co-chair of that work group. I would tell you that 417 and the -1 amendment is essentially a memorialization of what I think we had all agreed to up to that point. However, I would also mention, in all fairness to all parties, there are still a few outstanding issues. One being whether or not we are going to address least cost for charging individuals. Again, this is a result of the OHSU litigation that took place many years ago about using people who have the lowest salaries, but are able to do that work rather than having managers or higher tiered employees, excuse me, doing that work. The second issue that remains outstanding is a difference of opinion on how long district attorneys should be given to conduct de novo reviews upon the denial of a fee waiver. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I think just on that point, Mark, my recollection is the outstanding disagreement was on the 7-day period for just an initial review of denial of a records request. We did reach agreement on the time frame for a de novo review, which would be 15 days, longer than what's currently in statute.
Happy to be corrected. If it is the 7 days, that's probably an easier issue to resolve, I hope, but it is still a thorny issue. So it is a timeline, as Steve described. Thank you for that assist, Steve. And then, honestly, I cannot even, now I'm all messed up and do not recall what the third item was, but it is significant. And so what Tom Holt and I had a discussion yesterday, or what was it, last week. Kim Thatcher, who is the Senate member of the PRAC, had reached out to Senator Lieber, asking her, as the chair of the Rules Committee, to introduce the amendment that we came up with as a bill for the Rules Committee in the 2024 short session. I don't think a decision has been made as to whether to move forward with that or not. As a matter of fact, I will be having a discussion this afternoon with the caucus leader in the Senate about that, and I will be meeting with Kate Lieber in person later on this week to discuss this. So whether or not this bill is actually introduced in 2024 remains a question mark. However, my advice to both Senator Thatcher and Senator Lieber will be to reconvene the group to try to iron out any issues before introduction. I think that we need to have a consensus document that we're all clear on before we go ahead and just get it introduced, because frankly, if this thing is not agreed to, that bill is not going to move forward. You have literally about 1 week to work through issues during the short session, and it has to be done, at least in my view, in advance of the session. So that is what is going on. I would welcome any questions, thoughts, or anything of that nature, but that's the status at this point. We're not sure whether or not the bill will be introduced. We know that further work needs to be done, and it's our recommendation that work be done prior to the drop dead time for bill introduction. Steve.
Yeah, now my hand's raised for real. Thank you. I guess I just wanted to say briefly, like having participated in the subcommittee work last year and continued on in the work group, the subcommittee met for, I think I calculated a total of 30 hours. And the small work group, the work group met for, 10 hours. And we also had a small subgroup of that that I was involved in. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, I felt that the changes to 417 that we made were very much in keeping with the goals that the council set out with our draft version, and in some ways it may even be stronger. And that's that says a lot given the number of people who are in the room. Public bodies were very well represented, a diversity of public bodies. And I think we came to, we made some hard decisions and had to leave some things out that people really would have liked to have been addressed on both sides. But there really was a pretty widespread consensus behind the version we came up with. So I would just say, in terms of moving forward, I would really resist a whole lot of changes at this point. There are a couple of these issues that Mark mentioned that were hard to resolve, but we couldn't resolve them at the table, and we came up with things that people could live with. I think there are some people who would like to not live with them and would like to revisit them, but I would. It was hard getting to this point. It was a very, very long slog, and I think we have a really good bill as it stands, but willing to engage with the process further if there are additional tweaks that need to be made. Thank you.
Well, Steve, I for one, the recommendation that I'm making to both Senators Lieber and Thatcher, I don't want them to be under the impression that it's been fully baked. Again, there are a few hanging issues that are out there. Of course, if they want to forge forward, we can do that work again. It's their choice, right? And so I'm going to do my best to sort of explain where we are. Tom Holt will be in attendance with me, so both sides of the coin are represented in those discussions. So we'll keep the PRAC informed, of course, as to any decisions that are made, and ensure that everybody is aware of whether or not we'll be continuing to meet to iron out a few of those issues or not. So stay tuned, but I wanted to, again, just provide everybody sort of that update on where things stood. And Steve, you're absolutely right. There were countless hours put into that, and it was a lot of very hard work, but everybody came to the table, I think, in great faith, not good faith, great faith. And I was actually pretty proud of the work that we accomplished under the circumstances. So again, if there are any questions or comments, I would welcome those at this point. All right. Well, seeing none. Oh, Tony, you have your hand up there. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a quick thanks to, I mean, that's a lot of time and a lot of work to y'all for representing us. And it's just a quick notion of congratulations and for bringing together so many different stakeholders. Looking forward to the continued work.
And I guess the last thing, and I would sort of echo Steve's comment. I do think the product is in keeping with what the PRAC was generally attempting to do with their bill. So with the bill, so I'm pretty pleased with it. We had some really great participants who live and breathe administering public records laws, and so they were extremely helpful, and it was a good conversation. So again, thank you. So at this point, I think we're going to go to agenda item number 3, get an update from Mr. Miles in the governor's office on the status of everybody's current position. So Cameron, thank you for joining us. Good to see you. You didn't have to wear a tie on my part, but maybe you knew that Representative Anderson was going to be here. So take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me share my screen and let's do our presentation.
And I'll just note quickly, Cameron's slides are now posted under today's meeting.
Are my slides up and visible now?
Indeed.
Yes.
Take it away.
Okay, so I'm Cameron Miles. I'm a government accountability attorney in the governor's office. Let's see, how do I adjust these now? And now I can't figure out how to move the slides forward. There we go. The PRAC was, I want to give a little introduction first on the PRAC and the terms. The PRAC was created by Senate Bill 106 from 2017, and Section 8 listed the members in the PRAC. But it didn't define the length of term. Those initial members were confirmed in September of 2017, and they held their first meeting on October of 2017. And here are the representatives that are on the PRAC, the members of the PRAC that are appointed by the governor's office. And those are the ones that we're concerned with today. So, PRAC was modified by House Bill 2430 in 2019. Section 2 created term limits, not term limit, the length of it, defined the length of the term. That was put into ORS 192-481-7, and then there's a note section, and I'll show it to you in a second. The length of term was set at 2 years. However, the governor appointed terms were retroactively staggered. The terms were based on a start date of January 1st, 2018, or 2018. Half the terms were 3-year terms, started out as 3-year terms, ending in odd number years, and half were set as 4-year terms, ending in even number years. So here's that section. Section 7 is the normal 2-year terms. Then the notes section below shows how they were allocated between who got 3-year terms and who got 4-year terms. So here is what should have happened. Here's how we would verbal representation of what House Bill 2430 represented. So you have the initial terms, 3 or 4 years, and then a second term is a 2-year term that was going to follow up. Unfortunately, that is not what happened. As you can see, in some instances, 3 and 4-year terms were continued for subsequent appointments. In other instances, they were set at 2-year terms. Additionally, the orderly transition on January 1st of each year was not followed, with several terms ending mid-year. So, as you can see, we have a problem. We would like to have the council basically ask me any questions, talk about it. We want to figure out how to get the PRAC back. Well, we want to know if the PRAC wants to get back to where House Bill 2431 was kind of set up, whether you want to be January 1st terms. But we need to note that any new terms need to be 2-year terms. And so for that discussion, I want to just leave this slide up here. And this shows us where we should be, or where we are, where we should be, and where we should have become next term. So if there are any questions or discussion, I'd like to go to that now. And again, I'll be available for any questions that you have. I've seen a couple hands up. I am not sure.
Steve, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'll help you out there, Cameron. Steve.
Yeah, so speaking as one of those who's overextended his stay, my recollection is, I mean, the reason why I've continued, I think Todd and I both spoke to the preceding administration at some point in 2022, maybe before that, and we're advised by the Governor's Chief Counsel that there is a practice for all boards and commissions that if no new appointment is made by the governor, that the person in place, I don't remember the term for it, but that person continues continues to hold office. And I don't know what the basis is for that in law, but I think we went just based on that advice. I, for one, would be happy to, to seek renomination and reconfirmation by the Senate if I'm still eligible, and go through that process if that's desired.
So that is actually correct. People can stay in as long as no one is appointed. Alternatively, there's nothing that automatically kicks someone out of the council just because their term expires. We're more concerned with what should we do going forward? How should we? I mean, do we want to get back into that once half of the term? And again, you're subject to reappointment. It allows for reappointment multiple times. We were concerned with at first, we thought it was 4-year terms, but these are actually 2-year terms. So there's no problem with people staying and being reappointed. We do have to go through the process. It is a Senate confirmed position. So we do need to follow the process as dictated by statute.
That was actually my question, Cameron, was whether or not those seats have term limits. I guess the follow-up, and if I understood you correctly, your answer to that is no. There are no term limits to membership on the council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So a follow-up question. I know that our previous governor made it a point that once an individual had served out their eligibility, that they, or at least 2 terms, that they wanted to find fresh blood, if you will, for those various commissions and groups. Do you have a sense for the new governor's position on that question?
So that's a little more complicated. Originally, we were under, we knew about that was the kind of the practice in the past.
Yes.
That's usually with 4-year terms, though, and that's 8 years. No one has hit 8 years yet. We've still got another couple years before anyone can hit 8 years even. So we're not there yet. With these 2-year terms, there's clearly people can serve longer. if the PRAC wants, like you said, new blood, wants to have people from different perspectives, we're definitely open to that, and generally we would support that. But again, it's a lot of what the PRAC wants. What do they see as their needs for the going forward?
Discussion.
I'm certainly open to getting us back on track and meeting the 2-year term, and doing what we need to do to revisit to get us to that point. Looks like I perhaps in one sense benefited the most by having the longest current term out there at the moment, but I'm happy and open to get us back on track.
It's Emily Harris. So is 2 years, I'm sorry, I was getting a little lost in the 3s and 2s and different appointments. Is 2 years what we're supposed to serve, and then come through, then somebody would replace us unless it was a reappointment? Is that because 2 years is really short, considering like we spent so long on this legislation, for example, and I'm just thinking about turnover and continuity when you're trying to do things that are complicated and set policy that's complicated. So I'm not sure that getting back, I mean, I want to follow the law, obviously, but I want to just understand better what the options are to provide continuity as well as follow the law.
So like I said, under half the terms that expire every year, but that doesn't mean that we have to replace all the people every year. You can go up for reappointment as many times as you want. I was surprised also. I thought these were 4-year terms across the board until I started digging and realized that, especially when I saw different terms of all different lengths, I was like, wait, what's going on here? Why do we have some people serving really short and some people really long? And so that's when we started digging and found out what had happened. Continuity is, I think, is important. So it would be a matter of people need to be reappointed because it is Senate confirmed. If the council wanted to recommend changing that, we would obviously not object to that at all. If that wanted to make that 4-year terms or do any other changes, but we're not going to promote something like that. That would need to be the council initiating that. Because we do want them to have, I mean, it is somewhat supposed to be independent. We want them to kind of forge their own way and do it the way they want to do it.
Got it. Thank you.
Steve.
I guess I'm not clear at this point what the options available are, because I mean, I thought if you were saying 2 years is in statute, then I mean, what discretion do we or you have?
So if they've already been appointed and confirmed by the Senate, we've got kind of a problem there if it was longer than was required, but it's not one we actually have to fix because there's nothing wrong with someone overstaying the end of a term. So it doesn't really matter whether they were confirmed to a 4-year and it should have been a 2-year or not. We can just not reappoint anyone else until that 4 years is up. So the question is, do we want to go start maybe beginning of next year, start reappointing everyone to actually 2-year terms? Do we want to wait till these terms are completed and then maybe the following January, have it reappointed for the following January? Do we care about it being January 1st, or do we want to just let the terms expire and then wherever they are, do another 2 years? I mean, we have lots of options. Logistically options, but they're not options that really affect the legality of it. So we don't mind how the council wants it to look going forward.
Andrea.
Question. The staggering of the terms that happened, was that for continuity purposes so that you don't have the entire board kind of jumping off at this? Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. And I was just thinking out loud, House of Reps has a 2-year term as well. So there is, sort of that constant But I would definitely support at least aligning the dates to make sure that, we know at the end of the year, we're going to have to start looking at reappointment or new confirmation, just because having it in the middle of the year and at the end of the year, things will get lost, and just organizational purposes, I think that's helpful. As far as 2 or 4, I don't have any strong opinions there. So my 2 cents.
Thank you, Andrea. And then Tony.
Yeah, I think I agree with Andrea in terms of one. I think it'd be great to just have the start dates aligned. And but I also agree it would be nice because of just seeing the long amount of work that it took just to get this recent work that we did with Bill 417, Senate Bill 417. It seems that like a 4-year term would be give the members sufficient time to work on long-lasting policy and not have to parachute in if you're on a 2-year term and just jumping in on something that maybe others have been working on much longer. So I guess just to summarize, I would support putting the start date for everyone to start at the same month, and then endorse 4-year terms if that's possible within the existing laws.
I am looking at the comments, and I think Emily made a interesting point as well here. I won't repeat it, but I think that she has an interesting take on this issue as well.
Now I have to find the comments because I don't know how to see those either.
Oh, well, okay, then I'll repeat it. This isn't probably relevant to the discussing what happens going forward, but the chart seemed to reflect that the current people on the PRAC served all the terms, which isn't always true. She wasn't appointed until last year, and my role was previously held by Sharon. So that is an interesting take. There has been turnover on the PRAC. We know that. We've seen changes with Emily. We've seen changes with Scott, and we've seen changes with well, the county position is still vacant, if I remember correctly, but that was previously held by Rob Bovet. Right. So we have seen some turnover here. I see Tony, is your hand still up? If not, I'm going to go to Todd. Yes, Todd, please.
Great. I'm just going to recommend that we add this as an agenda item for the next meeting when we're going through everything else. So that way we can come to a consensus, hopefully quickly, or maybe with the formation of a small directed subcommittee.
Todd, could you work perhaps? I do agree that we need to put this to the next meeting. And would it be asking too much if you and Cameron perhaps worked with one another to lay out some options that the council could take moving forward, if that's agreeable to the council? I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I do agree that there needs to be some continuity, but there also needs to be an opportunity for new people to come aboard, or for those of us who doubt they have any volunteers to take their position to continue on. That would probably be me, folks. So it would be, I think, helpful perhaps if we had some options that were laid out. And Cameron, I don't want to create a whole bunch of work for the governor as well, because I know that she has some 200 appointments stacked up right now, and I don't want to create more difficulty, because it's not an easy thing to do, folks. There are literally hundreds of work groups or councils and commissions that the governor has to appoint people to, and I think she has a full staff just dealing with that issue alone. Andrea?
A quick question, if anybody remembers, I don't know off the top of my head why a position would be Senate confirmed or not. Was there a trigger in something that causes Senate confirmation, or is it just written into the law?
It was written into the law back in 2017.
Okay, I thought there was some trigger that makes that so, but I can't remember. So anyway,
There is
just
not.
a question.
It's just the way it's written.
Yeah.
Todd and Cameron, did that seem like, is that a reasonable request? Is that a request that the council supports? If not, I mean, that's fine too. I'd just like to be able to get some clarity moving forward, and perhaps some options that can be presented to the council might help us out in making that decision.
Mark, I'm happy to do that if Cameron's available. Obviously, it's the options or solutions we come up with are going to be limited to what we can think of. So the council might still have other ideas, but I'm more than happy to try to come up with what seems like practical solutions to me or Cameron and I to present to the council.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the most obvious one was to just look at those terms, and whenever they end, start the next January, and just do a new 2-year term after that. But that will not create the half expiring every year, because I think it's going to be 5 and 3 if we did it that way. And from what I look at, the media members would all term at the same time. So I'm not sure that that's a great option.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
So I think it's going to just have to play around with how that would work best. Would note that Shasta Kern-Moore and Tony Hernandez were both appointed to longer terms, but then not confirmed to the longer term, because I think the Senate caught it at some point and then didn't say anything to anyone. And so they got confirmed to a different term than they were appointed to, I believe. It's complicated, so I can't really tell what happened.
Wow.
But yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so I think we can come up with some solution or some suggestions, and Todd and I can work together on that and say, hey, what about if we do this, and just next appointments for each of these positions be this, 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 and this, and then see if the council likes it.
Great. I see Steve's hands up.
So I'm wondering about the timing on like how quickly it seems like we probably need to make a decision pretty soon, because we're coming up on December of 2023. Was Mark, are you envisioning maybe an additional meeting before then, or how will this work?
Yeah, I think that was the plan. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Todd. Weren't we looking at a November meeting? Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be our annual meeting where we do the big stuff. So yeah, we have to. So that's one of our items for today, is trying to set the date, or at least talking about what's going to happen during that meeting.
Seems to me that this might be a ripe issue for that agenda.
I'm sorry, I was trying to answer someone's email that was contacting us about meeting minutes. What was the question?
It wasn't a question. Mine was a statement. It seems like a logical time to address the issue.
Oh, I agree. So if this works for you, Mark, how about I try to interface with Cameron and come up with ideas before the meeting, and then include in that meeting an agenda item for me to present, or maybe Cameron and I to present what we came up with.
Yeah, and all I would simply ask is that the council members review the options prior to the meeting, and hopefully formulate some kind of an opinion prior to that meeting, and we'll have a robust discussion, I am sure. Is that acceptable to everybody? Any further questions on that? Doesn't appear to be. So thank you, Cameron, for that. I very much appreciate it. Sounds like we have a bit of a cobweb that we're going to have to untangle, and looking forward to your and Todd's suggestions, because I don't know.
That's what I looked at. I'm like, oh no, I don't know what to do here. I'm not making this decision on my own.
Yeah, well, giving us some options, I think we'll tee it up for some decisive action, hopefully at our November meeting. Okay, so I believe we've satisfied that particular item. So at this time, I think we're going to have a public comment period. Typically, we do at these meetings allow for the public to address the council. And at this time, Todd, I do believe we have at least one member of the public that wants to address the council. And folks, for your information, there was information posted on our agenda regarding this public comment. So Todd, if you wouldn't mind taking it from here and perhaps introducing our public member who wants to address the council. And if there are any others who want to address the council, please feel free to. I'm going to ask that we limit comments, at least at this point, unless there are more, to 3 minutes, if that's acceptable.
Sounds good, Mark. Ms. Barker, if you're still with us and would like to comment, please go ahead and do so.
I'm just grateful to be back and see everybody. And I read the comment that was posted, rather conscious shocking. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the council at this time?
Yes, I would.
Yes. And
Okay,
I would too, Laura Ahern.
Okay, Laura Ahern, and I believe there was a gentleman, sir. Why don't you identify yourself? And before you do that, actually, Steve, I saw your hand up. No? Okay.
I was going to suggest that people identify themselves. So you
yes.
got it.
I would ask that, sir, if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself, and please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Steve, for reminding. My name is Scott Forrester. Occasionally come to the meetings and appreciate hearing you guys again. The first thing I wanted to say is just as a layperson, I went to your website and I do not see the agenda posted on the public website for the council. So you have the link to the to join the meeting. You have a phone number, which I'm utilizing right now, but you don't have the agenda. So I feel somewhat left out that I can't follow you as well as possible. Also, in the middle of the meeting, you apparently had a PowerPoint presentation, or what you refer to as slides. It'd be nice to at least post those, if not in advance of the meeting, during the meeting on the public website for the council, so that people that may be participating silently or perhaps before the meeting could better participate.
Well, Mr. Forrester, I'd be happy to address both of those. The Public Records Advocate website does have the agenda because I pulled it from that. And Mr. Albert mentioned when Mr. Cameron brought up his slideshow that he had just posted those slides to the PRAC website as well. Am I incorrect in that, Mr. Albert?
You're not incorrect, although someone pointed out I might have the wrong date on the agenda, although it is posted under today's meeting. I do have the wrong date, so I will correct that.
Okay, appreciate the response back. I'm just looking at the web page with the top title, Oregon Public Records Advocate, and then below that it says the Public Records Advisory Council. And then it says list of current members, and then upcoming meetings has today's meeting September 18th. Again, it says to join the meeting, and then also has a phone number, but it does not have the agenda. I'm just saying, as a layperson, I would assume that the same location where you're invited to join the meeting and participate would be a good location to actually post the agenda so that people can more fully participate. I just wanted to make that point. And secondly, and I know the time's limited, thank you, just as a general issue for a future agenda, it'd be nice that there'd be some general discussion about the obligations or maybe even improvement of jurisdictions archiving, digitizing their public records. Many of them are born digital these days. Many of them are, in the past, paper records and other records. but as they are digitized, either in response for public records requests or just as they do it as a part of their maintenance, plus the Born Digital records, that these should all be basically posted either on a statewide website or individual servers by individual organizations or jurisdictions, so that people can access like this plethora of public records without having to do records requests, or in some cases repeated requests for the same documents. So since these documents are being created using public monies for public purposes, it'd be nice to actually just have a repository so that over time would be building kind of like these records that might normally be requested to basically feed the public their public records without having to do particular requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester, for joining us today. We do endeavor to post everything prior to our meetings, and hopefully, I think we accomplished that this time around. Sorry for any confusion with the dates. Steve?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say those the agenda and well, the agenda definitely is right below the spot where it says click here to join the meeting, but evidently, you know, as a test case, a interested member of the public did not make that connection. So maybe it's just a question of kind of the layout on the website to make it clearer that they're connected. That's all.
Thank you, Steve. And I believe Miss Ahorn, you wanted to, and if I mispronounce your name, forgive me. I believe you wanted to address the council as well. Please go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. You're close. It's Laura Ahern. I've submitted my comments in writing. I do have some updates. Since I put that together, I've learned that Oregon Revised Statute, Section 192.324, paragraph 7, requires a public body to have a written procedure that includes the amounts and the manner of calculating fees. Jackson County definitely does not have that. They have a very bland order from the commissioners to collect actual costs. And as I've explained, their concept of actual cost is a very dense accountant's formula for fully burdened compensation rates divided by the average productive hours of all of our county employees. I'm still working through that. I've alluded to the case of a colleague. She's a colleague with me both in the animal care realm, but also in a initiative petition that's been launched here in Jackson County. Since territorial times, since 1852, we have had only 3 county commissioners. They used to represent, you know, a few hundred white miners, and now each of them per capita represents about 80,000 people. So this individual had made a public records request and explained that the information was needed to disseminate to the public as part of this political democratic process. She received the same identical boilerplate that I received to her request for a fee waiver. She wrote back explaining in great detail about how this information was going to be disseminated. And the clerk promptly wrote back saying, well, no, you still haven't met your burden because you're not a member of an established newspaper or media outlet. But if you want to have one of those reporters contact us, if one of those media people submit this very same request, then maybe we'll consider it. This is just further establishing what I see, that Jackson County has devised this strict bright line rule that does not come from the statute, and it is fundamentally at odds with the statewide policy that was established back in 2017 by the Department of Administrative Services that sets out, a decision tree, and that document nowhere says, are you a member of the newspaper or the media outlet? So that's where we stand here in Jackson County. I guess my options now are to give up, pay the hundreds of dollars, perhaps I could turn to the public records advocate, but many of these issues, just are beyond simply mediating how the county is treating my individual request. They are fundamental flaws in their procedures and their policies. And to get to that, I am probably left with having to bring a judicial action. I'm considering that. I'm trying to look at what the blowback might be. And of course, the expense and the drain on my time, which I would rather devote to other endeavors right now. So maybe some of you have some reaction or questions or suggestions for me. I hope at a minimum you see this as a case study here at the grassroots level about how the Public Meetings Act is not working and how important it is that public records requests are successful so that citizens can properly monitor their government. So I'm here for any questions or suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Yes, Steve.
Thank you. And thank you for your testimony. I do think it's a case study in some of the problems that we've been attempting to address over the past couple of years. And I would know, for one, SB 417 as amended, or as we hope to be amended, would provide an incentive for public bodies to create and publish their public records fee policies. As you note, it is mandated currently, but there's no teeth in it, or there's nothing in it for them, and there's no stick if you fail to do it. In terms of the costs, I will say these are among some of the higher costs I've ever seen quoted. $200 an hour for someone to review files, and I think that it touches on the least cost discussion. But yeah, I think there are avenues. Like I'm not going to speak up for exactly what your avenues for appeal are. Todd might have better advice on this, but I mean, I think when such a rate is quoted, there are avenues to challenge it that you can pursue, and I think that's worth considering. But I guess the last thing I'll say is on Senate Bill 417 concerning the news media. In our amended version, being a member of the news media is one of several factors that would be considered by the public body and by the appellate body in determining whether disclosures in the public interest. So then that was very much with the intention of people who are not members of the news media also being able to make the case that disclosures in the public interest. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I'll note is it's my understanding, my requests do go to elected officials, so I do not have the option of petitioning my district attorney to review the refusal to waive the fee. That's why I don't think that avenue is open to me here.
Thank you very much for this discussion. Any other thoughts? And if not, Todd, I'm going to move to agenda item number 6. Oh, forgive me. Shasta, please.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, can you clarify your requests are for records held by the political elected officials, or are they records held by the county?
Well, see, the way the Jackson County requires you to submit, you have to go to the Board of County Commissioners if you expect them to have been in the loop. There's no county repository. The documents I am looking for, I expect to find in the offices of the county commissioners, the county administrator, and the Health and Human Services that oversees the shelter. So I followed their prescribed procedures, and then the county attorney came back saying, well, let's bundle this all up into one omnibus request to the county, because he was the one that was going to compile the records. So I physically,
So I
I
don't know
was
if
looking.
this helps, but if it is a county, if they're owned by the county, then yes, you can appeal to the district attorney. The records, you know, that like emails between elected officials or something like that would be there.
I get your point there. Okay, thank you.
County records, then you could do the district attorney route, at least for that portion of it.
Okay, I understand your point. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you for the discussion, everybody. And now we'll move to agenda item number 6. Todd, if you wouldn't mind taking it away.
Thanks, Mark. Excuse me. And I may call on Yufeng to assist me as she's taken on the lion's share of this project, trying to move us forward towards being a more standardized state agency. So she might be able to answer some questions that I cannot. But what we have here today is a draft facilitated dispute resolution administrative rule that the office is attempting to formalize and institute, as we currently do not have one. I know it was on Ginger's to-do list back when she was in this role, and we're only first now finally being able to get to it as we move towards a more standardized model of operations as a state agency. We haven't utilized our formal dispute resolution authority as of yet. I don't think it's fair to ask parties to engage in the process if such a situation were to arise without having a formal rule, so everyone can adequately understand what their rights and expectations are to participate in the process. So the rule as written in draft form will continue to follow the steps for the creation of a formal administrative rule, which means publication, commentary from the community, so on and so forth. However, given that the PRAC has the ability to institute its own rules for our office, hasn't exercised those as of yet, and we are choosing to do so for our office, and the PRAC is in an advisory role, I'd like to provide you with this rule, talk to you a little bit about it, and then ask that any of you that have any commentary on it get back to us in the next 2 weeks or so individually with any thoughts or ideas you have to improve the rule so that we can consider incorporating that into the draft before we move to the next steps in the actual rule creation process. Of course, when the rule goes out for public commentary, you're welcome to offer comments then as well, but given the PRAC's role to our office, we figured we'd let you in on the ground floor when it's still in draft form. And so what this rule really does is take the existing statute and how the statute spells out what this office can do and with whom, because of course we have different powers at the state level within the executive branch compared to everything else, and tries to spell it out for any party that's going to request formal mediation from our office. It doesn't really honestly do a lot more. There's not a lot of expansion on what the statute requires other than just trying to spell out what each step entails and what each party can expect as its own obligations when participating in this process. So I mean, that feels kind of vague, but that's because I'm not necessarily asking you for anything today. I just want to make you aware of the draft rule and give you the opportunity to review it and comment back to us in your own time. But of course, we're happy to answer any questions you might have about it today.
Yufeng, do you have anything to add?
I don't, but if there are any specific questions, I'm happy to address that.
I was hoping you would go on. Don't get to see you very often.
As much as she'd probably like to, I don't know if anyone wants to stay here long enough to hear it.
I hear that sentiment as well. Well, okay, folks, so simply ask that you take a look at those proposed rules prior to our next meeting again. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to Todd or Yufeng with those comments. Todd, I guess my question is really once you've gone through that sort of internal comment review, I don't expect that you're going to need our approval to file those with the Secretary of State. Is that correct? Or do you plan to ask the council for permission to do so, I guess, is my only sort of procedural question that I have.
Good question. And, those kind of questions are relevant given the sometimes undefined nature of the relationship between this office and the council. I do not think your permission is necessary. We are putting this forth as the Office of the Public Records Advocate rather than as the PRAC. But again, given your important relationship to our office, your feedback is critical if you have any, but I don't think we need any actual formal actions from the PRAC to move forward with putting forth the rule.
Thanks for that clarification.
And I will say one thing other, sorry, Steve, Mark, rather, Steve made a good point based on the comments of Mr. Forrester. These administrative rules never are easy to read, but I think readability is important given the, given that all are welcome to our services and will be coming to us at differing levels of like authority and knowledge with rules and the law and comfort interacting with government. So to the extent that any of you have recommendations, especially on improving readability, I'd really like to hear those too.
Shasta.
Yeah, just curious if, without having to look up this other ORS, does requester defined as a person, could that include a corporation?
Yes, because requester follows the definition of the public records law. So anyone who's entitled to make a public records request is also entitled to at least request formal alternative dispute resolution.
So like Google could come along and say, I'm a person under this law?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Great, thank you for that, Todd. So folks, if you're looking to fill some time with some technical reading, I think that Todd has something for you to take a look at. I did take a quick glance. I have not dug into it though at this point personally, but I certainly will get back to you and Yufeng if I have any thoughts on it. Thank you. Any other comments, questions at this point? Okay. Well, we're getting to the fun part of our meeting now. Item number 7. Todd, looks like you have A, B, C, D, and E to discuss with us. So why don't you start off with council leadership? I'm going to be very curious to hear what you have to share on this one.
Sure. Well, to the best of my recollection, we elected our current PRAC leadership terms in November-ish of 2021 to 2-year terms. That would be our current chair, vice chair, and secretary. And so we are due to re-elect or the next round of elections for those positions so that we can move into the new year with someone in place in each of those 3 roles. So that would be needed at our next meeting. I don't know if we want to talk about process or whomever is interested or needs to be voluntold to do it can merely raise their hand at the next meeting. I will say, given the ambiguity around terms, any of you who thought you were leaving but who aren't should feel free to throw your hat into the ring or keep your hat in the ring as well. I won't name names. But that's it from me.
Well, I am curious. Steve and Emily are both termed out. Well, not necessarily. Their terms have come to a conclusion. Is that correct, Steve and Emily?
I honestly don't know where
I don't remember.
Fair enough. I just yeah. Emily, do you know? Emily Gothard?
No. Emily Harris is the is the vice chair. Sorry, I apologize, Emily Gothard. Well, I don't have any strong feelings at this point, one way or the other. We do need to select our next 2-year term for leadership of the council. I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. So we'll obviously have a discussion at our November whenever our next meeting takes place, that our leadership for the next 2 years. Okay, so those of you who may be interested in serving as either the chair, the vice chair, or secretary, I don't think you need to necessarily share that now, but we will be having a discussion about that. And if you are interested in serving in one of those roles, bear in mind that our next meeting will be discussing those options. Andrea, please.
This is not a raise hand for volunteering, but I'm curious if vice chair bumps up to chair and secretary bumps up to vice chair. Is this that type of leadership structure or no?
No, I don't think so. I got railroaded into this several years ago, if I recall correctly. So I didn't protest too much, but I don't think we have a formal process on this at all, Andrea. It was really who's willing to do it and has the time and space to do it. So that's how that all happened.
It may, I'm just a light suggestion, it may help kind of funnel and not have as many decisions to make in the future if, you know, it's just one new person every year. But that also is a commitment for the person to volunteer as a secretary, for example. So just
indeed
a thought.
Todd?
I was going to say, I've served on bar committees that had that structure that Andrew's mentioned, and it does make life a lot easier, although there were still I think we still voted on the entire slate anyway for some reason every couple of years, but there was that notion of succession from one position to the next, so it's worth considering.
Well, if you have thoughts on that, folks, you can bring those to our next meeting. Maybe we can formalize something at that time. Although I don't want to necessarily hand tie future councils with a system that we came up with. I mean, I think that everybody should be able to set their leadership the way they want to. So there's some advantages and disadvantages to all types of models there. So thank you for that. It'll be an interesting discussion, I'm sure. But again, I want to just remind everybody who serve on the council that if you want to step into a leadership role, our next meeting will be your opportunity to do just that. Okay. Are there any further comments or questions on that?
Yes, I wanted a clarification, please.
Mr. Forrester again?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to make a clarification.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So it's been updated, the site. So as your volunteer layperson, I did notice that at the top of the web page, which says the Oregon Public Records Advocate, at the tab that says About, there's a drop down and there are two choices. One says Office of Public Records Advocate and the other is Public Records Advisory Council. So when I do the drop down and go over to the Office of the Advocate, there was posted today's agenda, but the one that I had selected, which is the council itself, was until just recently updated, had the missing agenda. So maybe, I don't know how the hierarchy is, but if the council is separate, maybe there should be a separate page, or if there's a hierarchy, maybe the landing page should be the page of either the council or the advocate, but not both. Thank you.
Mark, if it's helpful, I could provide some information.
Please go ahead, Todd.
Well, actually, I welcome Mr. Forrester to interact with me after this meeting at some point in the near future, because I wonder if he's having technical difficulties on his end, because the Public Records Advocates page is information about my office and not the council, and wouldn't have council meeting information. But the PRAC tab, the Public Records Advisory Council tab, is a tab that had today's meeting information, including the agenda. So I'm not sure why it's reversed on his computer. Maybe that's an issue on his end or something else, but I'm happy to talk to him about it and see if I can be helpful in that regard at some point soon.
Thank you, Todd. Todd, well, let's go to item B under 7, please. Formation of a review committee.
Sure, Mark. And this is something I want to offer to the council, because as per the letter appointing me under the former process from the governor, I was appointed November 1st, 2020, even though I wasn't confirmed by the Senate until the following February. And therefore, as per that appointment letter under the old process, my term ends on Halloween, October 31st, 2024. I am subject to successive four-year term reappointments, but obviously that is now in the hands of the PRAC. So we have a long time, relatively speaking, until that's happening. The PRAC hasn't appointed the advocate right as of yet because I was appointed under the old process. So this would be the first time for the council. And it doesn't make sense, I don't think, for me to participate. And so I'm handing it off to all of you to figure out what kind of process, if any, you want for either reappointing me or selecting a new advocate. And you have a little over a year to figure it out.
So on this topic, folks, I have some thoughts that I'll share and welcome any further suggestions, but I do believe the statute is pretty clear that the council is essentially the overseer of the public records advocate and makes a recommendation as to whether or not the advocate should serve an additional 4 years. This is a weighty topic, not the least of which that I don't understand, and I think it's very important and would, at least as the chair, recommend that we do form a subcommittee of members of the council to review the advocate's work and provide a process. I think it's very important that we do that, and so my recommendation, at least going forward, probably at the November meeting, would be to form a subcommittee to review and make a recommendation as to whether or not the advocate should continue in their position and make that recommendation to the, Todd, do we do it to the governor's office?
No, I mean, you are the sole hiring. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No. That's right. There's no longer sort of a governor's role in that, is there?
No, completely... and I don't know if DAS is going to be saying, hey, his 4 years is up, do we fire him or reappoint him? So you may have to interface with DAS when it comes to like merely the paperwork based on your decision. But otherwise, yeah, it's the PRAC's decision now.
Well, that leads me to believe that we need a little homework done. Right? Perhaps your office could reach out to DAS, because this may be the only council that has this sort of unique system, right? And I think it would be wise for us to get some ideas. But I did see, I saw a couple hands up, and Tony, I want to get to you, but perhaps Andrea has some insight on this. Andrea, I saw your hand go up and then I saw it go down, but I'm going to still put you on the spot.
I don't have any magical insight, but I was wondering if there were a similarly situated board, maybe within Oregon or outside of Oregon, that we can kind of look at their process and see. But yeah, I don't know of any off the top of my head. And as far as I understand it, like essentially DAS kind of transferred the office to its own entity. So I'm not sure. We'd have to check.
Yeah, and maybe one of those commissions that we look at is the Ethics Commission. I don't know how they do that with the Ethics Commission, so we might want to look into that. But again, I do intend to form a subcommittee. Tony, please.
Yeah, I guess my mind is like, where does this fit in with our not having bylaws, and should we do bylaws first to guide this process, or is this part of the process for bylaws, or does, I mean, so especially also with our own term, the issues that Mr. Miles brought up earlier with terms for us, and it just seems like there's a lot of I don't know what the word is, but a lot of need to put a lot of thought to paper in terms of what we should be doing. And so I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but I guess I do wonder if we're considering one subcommittee for the appointment process, if we should tie in all the other questions that what were brought up with just our own terms. So I'll just stop there.
Tony, I think it's a great point. You know, I recall that we had put together a bylaw subcommittee together several years ago, and that never actually materialized. So I think your point is very valid. Whether or not we can put together a set of bylaws that would guide a subcommittee on this topic, I don't know, but it's certainly one that should be included in any bylaws that we do create. Steve?
Yeah, I very strongly agree with the point Tony is raising. It seems like if we can swing it, having an additional subcommittee on bylaws would make sense. I just had a small process suggestion, is that for questions about you know, the homework that you're talking about, Mark, it seems like that might be best for the subcommittee to do that work rather than putting it on Todd. It seems like maybe a little bit too much to ask.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Steve. I realize we have some more time than perhaps I'm giving us credit for. We have until November of next year. Is that correct, Todd?
Well, October 31st, so more or less.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we have some time there. Whether or not we can put together a whole set of bylaws in that time remains a question, but we might be able to do a subchapter on appointing the public records advocate and then take it from there. That actually might be a good first step for a bylaws committee. So Todd, for our next November meeting, I would like to see if we can put on the agenda the formation of a bylaw subcommittee with the first cut on how to appoint or reappoint the records advocate. I think might be a good first step. If that meets if that meets with everybody's approval, I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. I don't know if that's the logical way to do this. If there's a better way to do this, I'm all ears, but I would certainly welcome the members' feedback on that. Silence is affirmation. So I'm getting a lot of silence. So I think that's at least until our November meeting, that's the way we'll go forward. But if y'all come up with a better way to do it, I'm all ears. We are getting close to the end of our meeting. So let's see if we can't plow through C. Oh boy. D might have to be put off a little bit, but we'll see. And go ahead, Todd. Why don't you give us your report, or is it you, Fang, who's going to do this for your work?
Neither, Mark. This is the look forward for the November meeting when I'll give the report. Today was a quote unquote short check-in meeting, so I'm saving the report for November.
Perfect. And then where are we in the agenda? Are we just simply selecting our next meeting date?
Yes, you kind of just mentioned one of the agenda items without really going into it, but the annual meeting was meant primarily for goals, looking back over the last year on goal setting for the next year, some of which we've discussed, but then as a specific item on its own, it's still there on the agenda for next time if we could get to it.
Okay.
And of course, I will also be presenting any ideas I've come up with about everyone's terms too.
Great. All right. So I think we're now at the point of selecting a date for our next meeting, if I'm not incorrect. Todd, do you have any recommendations?
I could send out a doodle poll again. I know we all have very varying schedules. November will be no different. It might be hard to come up with something now. We could try if you'd like, but otherwise I'll just get a doodle poll out in the next week or two.
That'll be great. I will note, Todd, and y'all don't need me necessarily, but I will be out of the country November 10th through I think the 24th, just as a note. Okay. Any other items for the good of the order, folks?
Quick question.
Steve, yeah.
For the November meeting, if we have agenda items we'd like to request, should we just send them to Todd, or do we want to? Okay.
Please send them to Todd. Yeah, I don't need to necessarily see them. Please, if you have agenda items that you would like the council to address, just let Todd know. Don't have to check in with me. Although it'd be great.
I will see. Actually, I will send it to both of you equally. Because yes, you are the council chair.
Don't forget Emily and Tony as officers of the council as well, although I don't want to get to a quorum, right? We want to avoid those kind of things. So thank you. Great. All right. Anything else? Any wise words for us before we conclude today? It's great seeing you all. It's been some time. I really appreciate your willingness to serve on this this committee. And I also want to go back to one of our first agenda items. I really do think that we're making some real progress on public records costs. And I also realize that some of you grow a little bit impatient about some of this stuff happening for good reason. But politics and policy, these are as we all know, these are complex and difficult issues. I think that the work that we did during the session really has sharpened the pencil, so to speak, and we have a pretty darn good product so far. I still think we have a few speed bumps that we need to grind down, so to speak, and that's just going to take some additional discussion. But I will tell you that this has been an issue that has been going on for years and years, and I really do think that we're close to finding a solution that I think is, for the most part, fair and equitable to all the parties. And so I really want to thank all of you who have participated in those discussions. It was not easy. It was actually quite frustrating at times, but everybody stuck to it. And I think that as a result, we've got a better product at the end of the day. And so to all of you who participated in that, I really sincerely want to thank you. So anything else? I hope each of you have a wonderful day. We'll look forward to seeing Todd's doodle poll. It is now 12:29. I love ending meetings early. So with your approval, I'd like to, what do we do? End today's meeting. So any objection? I'm seeing none. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.